the love that's up there. We may say, oh, it's going to be an important lesson that I'll have to use it for. Yeah, and that could be one person. That's how important we all are to our Creator, is that that lesson may influence millions and it may influence one. Hey everybody, welcome into Folklore and Flourish. Here with Jane and Mark over at Blue Box 29. Today is March 9th. Today is all about the Trickster in our month of Trials and Destiny, our tested hero. We are running into the Trickster. That does not mean that the Trickster is not the hero. Today we get to look at 4 Tricksters who were heroes for a number of reasons. So that's really exciting. We are in the week of the test, right? So we often see tricksters, as the people bringing chaos. We don't really see a whole bunch of, them by themselves learning their lessons, unless it is like the Marvel universe where we see Loki, but that's very different than a lot of the stuff he actually endured for his group. And we'll see him today. But with that, remember that our theme is that chaos tests certainty. Chaos is necessary because it does test certainty. We're going to look at the Trickster through Akan, Norse, Yoruba, and Native mythology today, specifically the Southwest, but I know that it's branched in almost all of the tribes within North America. So it just did list it as Native. But here are your 4 stories of the Tricksters.
Before we begin, I want to take a moment to honor the cultures behind the stories we are about to explore. The tales shared here come from many peoples, lands, and traditions. I do not change these stories to fit modern expectations or to align with today's social standards. Instead, I present them as they were told, sometimes beautiful, sometimes harsh, sometimes challenging. We are not here to judge the past, but to understand it, to listen, to learn, and to honor the ancestors who carried these stories forward. We also share stories from various religious traditions. These are presented in their historical and spiritual context, with respect for their beliefs that they represent. Every culture deserves respect, context, and acknowledgement, and this space is dedicated to doing exactly that.
Story 1. Anansi in the Pot of Wisdom. Long before villages dotted the forests of West Africa and before chiefs ruled beneath great silk cotton trees, the world was filled with many kinds of wisdom. Wisdom lived in rivers, in old trees, in animals, and in the quiet thoughts of elders. But among all creatures who sought wisdom, no one desired it more than Anansi the spider. Anansi was small, clever, and endlessly curious. He walked like a man but climbed like a spider, and his laughter often came before his plans were fully formed. Some called him foolish, others called him brilliant, but everyone knew one thing. Something strange had happened, and Anansi was usually nearby. One day, Anansi began to think about wisdom itself. Why, he wondered aloud, should wisdom belong to everyone? If all wisdom belonged to me alone, I would become the greatest creature in the world. This idea pleased him greatly. So Anansi went to Nyami, the sky god, who ruled the heavens above the clouds. Nyami was ancient and calm. His voice was steady as a wind before rain. Great Nyami, Anansi said with a respectful bow, I wish to gather all the wisdom of the world. Nyami raised an eyebrow. All the wisdom? The sky god asked. Yes, Anansi replied eagerly. Every clever thought, every secret lesson, every hidden truth. Nyami studied the small spider for a long moment. The sky god knew Anansi's nature well, but Nyami also understood that some lessons must be discovered rather than taught. So Nyami created a clay pot. Into this pot he placed every piece of wisdom scattered across the world. The pot glowed faintly as if light lived inside it. Take it, Nyami said, but be careful with what you hold. Anansi could hardly believe his good fortune. He carried the pot carefully down from the sky and examined it closely. Inside were endless whispers of knowledge, wisdom about rivers, wisdom about animals, wisdom about patience, wisdom about pride, wisdom about how storms began and why children laugh. Anansi grinned. If I hide this pot, he said, no one else will have wisdom. Then everyone will need me. He decided to hide the pot high in the tall tree where no one could reach it. Holding the pot tightly against his stomach, Anansi began climbing the tree trunk, but climbing proved difficult. The pot was large, and every time Anansi tried to climb, it bumped awkwardly against the bark. He slipped once, then twice. He muttered. Climbing with this pot is harder than I expected. He tried again, hugging the pot tightly against his belly. Still, he could not climb properly. From below, a small voice called out. Father, said Nakuma, Anansi's young son. The boy had been watching quietly. Why not tie the pot behind your back? Then your arms would be free to climb. Anansi froze. Slowly, he turned his head and stared at his son. The idea was simple, obvious, perfect. Anansi's legs trembled with sudden realization. How can this be? He cried. I gathered all the wisdom in the world, yet my own child knows something I did not. In that moment, Anansi understood something terrible. Even though he held every piece of wisdom in existence, he was still capable of foolishness. Anger and embarrassment rushed through him like a storm. With a furious shout, Anansi threw the pot from the tree. The clay shattered against the earth. At once, the wisdom inside scattered across the world again. Some drifted into forests, some fell into rivers, some landed in the thoughts of elders, some settled in the laughter of children. And so wisdom returned to the world, belonging to everyone once more. Anansi sat beneath the tree for a long time, watching the pieces of wisdom disappear into the land. Eventually, he began to laugh. The sound echoed through the forest like wind through branches. Well, he said at last, perhaps that was wiser after all. Story 2. Loki and the Unbreakable Wall. In the earliest days of the gods, when the halls of Asgard were still young and the worlds were nearly bound together by the great ash tree, Yggdrasil, the gods grew uneasy. Though the gods were powerful, they were not without enemies. Beyond the shining realm of Asgard stretched the wild lands of Jotunheim, where the giants lived. The giants were ancient beings of storm and frost, and many of them held long grudges against the gods. Odin, Allfather, watched the horizon often. If the giants ever breach Asgard, he warned, our realm may fall. The gods gathered in council. Thor struck his hammer against the stone floor. Then we must build a wall, he declared, a wall so strong that no giant could ever cross it. The gods agreed, but building such a wall was no small task. It would require enormous strength and endless labor. Then one day a stranger arrived at the gates of Asgard. He was a tall builder, cloaked against the cold winds. His eyes were sharp, and beside him stood a great stallion with a thick mane of silver hair. I have heard, the stranger said, that the gods wish to build a wall. We do, said Odin. I can build it, the stranger continued calmly. A wall strong enough to keep every giant out. The gods leaned forward. What do you ask in return? Odin asked carefully. The builder smiled slightly. Only 3 things. The hall grew quiet. I ask for the sun, the moon, and the hand of the goddess Freya. At once the gods erupted in outrage. Thor leapt to his feet. You dare demand the light of the heavens and the most beloved goddess in Asgard? But Loki, who had been lounging quietly near the fire, suddenly spoke. Wait, Loki said thoughtfully. All eyes turned toward him. Loki was known for his clever mind and silver tongue. Sometimes he solved problems the gods could not. Other times, he created them. What if we accept his challenge? Loki continued, but place conditions upon it. Odin considered this. What conditions? Loki grinned. He must finish the wall in a single winter, and he must do it without help from any man. The gods nodded. Such a task seemed impossible. Even giants could not build such a wall alone in one winter. The bargain was struck. But the builder revealed one condition of his own. My horse, Svadilfari, must help me. The gods agreed, and so the work began. From the first day of winter, the builder worked with astonishing speed. His great stallion hauled massive stones across the land, dragging them faster than any 10 men could carry them. Day after day, the wall rose higher. The gods began to worry. Thor counted the days. He is building too quickly, Thor muttered. Even Odin frowned. The winter passed swiftly, and the wall neared completion. Only the great gate remained unfinished. If the builder finished the wall, the gods would lose Freya, the sun, and the moon. The gods turned to Loki. This was your idea, Odin said sharply. Fix it. Loki swallowed. Even the trickster understood the danger now. That night, as the builder prepared for another day of work, a strange sound echoed through the forest. A beautiful mare emerged from the trees. Her coat shimmered like moonlight. She whinnied softly toward the stallion, Svathifari. The stallion lifted his head. The mare pranced playfully through the woods. Svathifari pulled against his harness. The builder shouted and tried to restrain him, but the powerful horse broke free and raced after the mysterious mare into the night. The builder searched desperately for his horse. Without the stallion, he could not finish the wall. Winter ended before the work was complete. The bargain was broken. The gods realized then that the builder was no mortal man, but a giant in disguise. Thor raised his hammer, Mjolnir. With one mighty strike, the giant was destroyed. The wall of Asgard remained unfinished, but the gods were safe. Days later, Loki returned to Asgard, but he was not alone. Behind him trotted a small fowl with 8 legs. The fowl's name was Sleipnir. And though few spoke of it openly, the gods knew exactly how Loki had distracted the giant stallion. Odin later chose Sleipnir as his own steed, the swiftest horse in all the worlds. And Loki, ever smiling, never explained the full story. For the trickster understood something the others did not. Sometimes the only way to save the world is to break the rules of it. Story 3, Eshu and the Two-Faced Hat. Long ago in the lands of the Yoruba people, where red earth paths wound between farms and villages, there lived a spirit known as Eshu. Eshu was not like the other Orishas, the divine forces who shaped the world. Some Orishas governed rivers, others governed thunder, fertility, or healing. But Eshu belonged to the crossroads. Wherever 2 paths met, Eshu waited. He was a messenger between the human world and the realm of the gods. No prayer reached the heavens without passing through his ears first. No offering traveled to the Orishas unless Eshu carried its meaning. Yet Eshu was also known for something else. He delighted in confusion. Not cruelty, but disruption. A twist of perspective, a sudden reversal that forced people to question what they believed was certain. One day, Eshu decided to visit 2 farmers who worked neighboring fields. The farmers were good men and lifelong friends. Their farms lay side by side, separated only by a narrow path that ran between them. Each day they worked under the sun, tending their crops and greeting each other across the field. Their friendship was strong. Too strong, Eshu thought. Certainty makes the mind sleep. And so Eshu prepared a lesson. He placed upon his head a curious hat. On one side, the hat was bright red. On the other side, it was deep black. Then he walked calmly down the narrow path between the 2 fields. The farmers glanced up from their work. "Good afternoon," one called. Eshu tipped his hat politely, but said nothing. He continued walking between the fields and disappeared beyond the hills. That evening, the 2 farmers met in the village, as they often did. One of them laughed. "Did you see that strange man today?" he asked. "Yes," said the other. "The one with the black hat." "Black hat?" the first farmer replied. "What are you talking about? His hat was red." The second farmer frowned. "No, my friend, it was clearly black." The first farmer shook his head. "I watched him pass. The hat was bright red." The second farmer crossed his arms. "You must not have been looking carefully. It was black." Their voices began to rise. "I know what I saw. So do I." Before long, the disagreement turned into a full argument. Each man became certain the other was either blind or lying. Neighbors gathered around them. "What is this quarrel about?" someone asked. "The man in the red hat," said the first farmer angrily. "The man in the black hat," the other corrected. Their friendship began to unravel like thread pulled from cloth. At that moment, a figure stepped forward from the crowd. It was Eshu. He removed his hat and held it out before them. One side was red, the other side was black. The farmer stared in stunned silence. "You see," Eshu said gently, "you were both correct." The men looked at one another, shame rising in their faces. "But you were also both wrong," Eshu continued. They lowered their heads. Eshu walked slowly between them. "You each believed what you saw was the whole truth," he said, "yet neither of you walked to the other side of the road." The crowd murmured quietly. Eshu replaced his hat upon his head. The world is a crossroads, he said. Truth often wears more than one face. With that, the trickster spirit turned and walked away. The two farmers stood silently for a long moment. Then one began to laugh. Soon the other joined him. Their anger dissolved like mist in sunlight. From that day forward, whenever disagreements rose between them, they remembered the two-faced hat and walked across the path to see the other side. And somewhere beyond the fields, Eshu smiled. For confusion, when faced with humility, often becomes wisdom. Story 4, Coyote Steals the Sun. Long before the world knew daylight as it does now, the earth lay beneath a dim and uncertain glow. The sky held only a faint gray light that barely reached the ground. Shadows lingered everywhere, and people moved through the world cautiously, unsure of what waited just beyond their sight. The animals suffered too. Hunters stumbled through forests unable to see their prey. Birds struggled to navigate the skies. Even the rivers seemed to move more slowly in the endless twilight. Yet somewhere in the world, true light existed. It was kept far away, hidden in a sacred bundle guarded by powerful beings who feared that too much light would bring chaos. Only they were allowed to possess it. The bundle contained the sun. Among the creatures who heard whispers of this secret was Coyote. Coyote was clever, restless, and endlessly curious. He wandered between mountains and valleys, always listening, always watching. Some called him foolish, others called him dangerous. But Coyote believed something different. Light, he said one evening while staring at the dim horizon, should belong to everyone. So he decided to steal the sun. Coyote knew he could not do this alone. He called together the animals. Raven arrived first, black feathers gleaming like night. Squirrel came chattering through the trees. Rabbit hopped nervously beside him. Even the slow turtle joined the gathering. Coyote spoke to them beneath a rocky cliff. The sun is hidden, he explained, guarded by those who refuse to share it. But if we work together, we can bring light to the world. The animals murmured uncertainly. Stealing from powerful beings is dangerous, Raven warned. Coyote grinned. Of course it is. But the animals also longed for light, so they formed a plan. The sacred bundle was kept in a great lodge deep within the mountains. Inside the lodge, the guardians watched over it day and night. Coyote approached the lodge first. He walked slowly, pretending to be tired and harmless. Oh, he sighed loudly as he reached the doorway. I've traveled very far, and I am terribly hungry. The guardians looked down at the scrawny animal. Coyote wagged his tail. May I come inside and rest? The guardians laughed. A foolish coyote cannot threaten us, one of them said, so they allowed him inside. Coyote curled near the fire as if exhausted, but his eyes quietly studied the lodge. There it was, a large bundle wrapped in thick hides. The sun. Coyote waited patiently. Then suddenly he leapt forward, grabbed the bundle, and dashed out the door. Stop him, the guardians shouted. The chase began instantly, but Coyote had plans for this. As he ran across the valley, he tossed the bundle to Squirrel. Squirrel sprinted through the trees, his small feet moving like lightning. The guardians chased him. When they nearly caught Squirrel, he tossed the bundle to Rabbit. Rabbit bounded across the hills. The chase continued. Rabbit threw the bundle to Raven. Raven carried it into the sky, but the bundle was heavy. Soon, Raven dropped it toward Turtle, waiting below. Turtle began slowly carrying the bundle across the ground. The guardians were close now, very close. Finally, Turtle tossed the bundle back to Coyote. Coyote ran harder than he ever had before, but the guardians were almost upon him. In desperation, Coyote ripped open the bundle. A blazing sphere burst into the sky. The sun rose suddenly above the earth, flooding the world with brilliant light. The guardians shielded their eyes, stunned by the sudden brightness. The animals gasped in wonder. Mountains glowed gold, rivers shimmered, trees cast long shadows across the land. For the first time, the world could see itself clearly. Coyote sat panting beneath the rising sun. The animals gathered around him. You did it, Rabbit said in awe. Coyote shrugged casually. Well, he said, someone had to. From that day forward, the sun traveled across the sky each day, bringing light to every corner of the world. And though Coyote often caused trouble in many other stories, the animals never forgot that once, through cleverness, chaos, and courage, he had stolen the light for everyone. You threw me off because you're trying to, take my job. Hey everybody, welcome back in. Hope you loved those 4 stories as much as we did today. For me at least, this might be one of my favorite days altogether.
Yeah.
4 stories just back to back to back that I've
Yeah.
really enjoyed.
Yeah.
Had a hard time reading through them. I don't know if you can hear again with the magic audio, but get a little bit more excited when I'm really engulfed in the stories in these 4 stories. I felt it.
Yeah.
I could feel it coming off of you too as we were reading.
Yeah, those last 2, man, they made me lip quiver for a shizzle.
It
Couple
was
tears in my eyes, but, like, it was just, like, just happy, and it was just, like, such a good story, and the meaning behind it is so powerful if you allow yourself to truly think about what he's saying and look at it from so many different perspectives, and that's our reality that we live in. Every single person is looking at the same exact hat
Mhm.
from a different angle.
Yeah, so the Eshu one, and just before we get into that, because I do wanna dive into
Oh,
that
man, all
specific thing,
4 of them, but
but,
yes.
the trickster in general
Yeah,
is often never seen as the hero or a villain. They're right in between, the anti-hero, the anti-villain, whatever it may be. That's usually where it is, and those tend to be I get a lot more emotionally attached to those stories
right.
than I do to the rest.
To me, it almost feels like they're the ones that never get, like,
Well,
that happy ending,
Well, for
never
an
get the win.
example, here are 2 tricksters that aren't identified as tricksters. They're identified more as heroes, but they fit into this exact realm.
Right.
Wolverine and Deadpool.
Okay, yeah.
I'm saying that because those are by far my 2 favorite. I think they are the 2 best storylines in any of the Marvel stuff, and I'm talking about the actual comics. I
Okay.
really enjoyed those as well. I did not look at all of them. Not trying to say that. I'm not big,
Right.
whatever, but those 2 because they're willing to do what needs to be done, like we heard in these stories. Well, someone had to do it,
Mm.
regardless of the cost. And yes, they're going to make mistakes and they're going to be villains in certain stories, but people remember those aspects. Wolverine, his willingness to sacrifice everything for the future of everyone else. He could have ultimately taken everything he wanted. What were they going to do? Kill him? And yeah, they did in the Marvels, right? And Deadpool brought it right back. That's
Yeah.
why we love Deadpool, because he's a little trickster. Ryan Reynolds is Deadpool, 100%. But
Yeah.
they are the figures that we see that Loki from the very beginning, the bad guy, the problem. But then he's so essential. So tricksters are, I think all of us are tricksters in one aspect or another. Some of us are a lot louder, while others are a lot more animalistic. So that's, I think, why I really enjoyed these 4.
Yeah.
And so with our daily thread, today we meet the trickster, the force that unsettles certainty and reminds us that wisdom often arrives disguised as disruption. Anansi tried to gather all wisdom into a single pot, only to discover that even the smallest voice may hold insight beyond our own. Loki saved Asgard not through strength or order, but through unpredictable transformation that broke the rules of the moment. He revealed how 2 people can see the same event and still believe entirely different truths. Coyote stole the sun itself, proving that chaos can sometimes bring the very light the world needs. Where in your life has confusion or disruption revealed something you could not see before? Insight arrives when control loosens. So jumping right into our first one, we have Anansi. Anansi with the pot, right? So the sun saying carry the pot from a string, just like a spider, right? And climb up. It was just too heavy. It was too much. And then to store it and to hide it. And I love at the end that it's just that little, I guess this was the wisest move. That little bit of when we release our control and we're like, you know what? It's not working. I can't get it done. And then you realize that that release was probably the closest to what you were trying to achieve the whole time. I'm trying to be wise. So I'm going to ask for help or I'm going to just release it. And I liked how it came from something insignificant to Anansi is what made him go, wait, I thought I had all the wisdom. Like you're a little, and not as in, you can take it in any context, honestly, that you want. There's so
Yeah.
many ways that we belittle people that we've
Right.
been belittled, both ends, right? But this one was a feeling that I really think we've all felt of when we think we are the one that knows how to do this task or just has the most knowledge. And then you hear something from someone that has no business knowing more than you. You know, you may have years of experience, you know, years of education, and they say something that you never thought of. We need that disruption.
Yeah, sometimes that's all it takes to spark probably one of the greatest ideas that's ever been known. And every single time that something comes up, it could be just that tiny spark,
Right.
you know, an idea came from somewhere.
And
That's
it's
exactly what it is.
the innovation, right? So how he said, and yeah, we're saying insignificant his son, but I mean, he's a trickster deity. We got to remember that.
Right.
But just going, like, sometimes the more we know, the less we think about those simple things.
Right. And that's exactly what he was saying in it, because it was like something so simple as all I had to do is put it on my back. Now, me, I was like, he's a spider. Why doesn't he just make like a little web thing, put the pot in it, tie it to the tree and hang it there, climb up, pull it up, make a little, I don't know. I was being like literal, thinking like he could have did it. But like he was just so consumed with what the outcome needed to be that he wasn't enough in the moment to change what was happening in order to escalate to what his final outcome needed to be. He was never going to get there because he was only consumed with where he was going, not where he was. And I believe that is one major thing that I am taking out of this story.
And something major that I'm thinking of too is he didn't take it on himself. It wasn't put within him.
Yeah.
It was in a pot. So he's looking at it. It doesn't possess it. It also goes to show that wisdom is constantly growing.
Yeah.
It's not completely wiped away.
He had it at that moment. He had everything.
The burning of the Library of Alexandria, all that knowledge, all that wisdom, right? Knowledge and wisdom can be two different things. But in that case, it was all gone. Then how do we have technology today? You know, what I'm saying is people continue to move forward. You continue to gain that wisdom. So that was something as well as, well, how did you have that thought when I'm holding everything here? I want it for me. I'm not going to use it, but I want it. And it goes to show, even when I possess everything, people will still find ways to innovate, to help, to suggest different avenues. And that's what I really liked about this too, was like, just, I could just imagine Anansi just chuckling, all right.
Right.
I get it. I get why it was given to me so easy, you know?
Yeah.
Because it's not something you can contain. It's not something that can be held. All it did was put everyone at a huge disadvantage because it was taken, you know? But then when he released it back, I mean, the world just accepted it because it was already regenerating.
Yeah, it was already making new knowledge. And then it was like, yeah, we remember this.
It's like the burning of a forest.
Yeah.
Burns completely down, then all of a sudden you start seeing the green coming out of this ashy stuff, and it will rise.
Yeah.
I really liked that. The second one, Loki. I've always been a huge fan of Loki. I mean, you know how obsessive I am about those things. I don't think he's watched the Loki series yet. It's so good. You have? Okay, so you know how it
I don't
ends.
know if I don't know if I finished.
The ending. The ending is the lip quiver that you felt the last two. Because it's the trickster that you just are rooting for.
Yeah.
Okay, so story 2, I was really happy to be able to pull a story that focused on the horse aspect. There's so many different things about Loki that I could pull as a trickster. I mean, some people may go, the interactions with Thor, the interactions with Freya. There's so many different gods and goddesses that he interacted with that he was a trickster for. Also other beings in different worlds. But this one was a serious disruption. We know Loki's a shapeshifter, right? He's always been a shapeshifter. A little bit easier to see now, you know, in our fictional universes where we're creating it through visual stuff. But back then, knowing you're in a room full of deities, you know that this person can change. But they didn't want to talk about this shift. Shifting into an animal he had done, the giants he had been, whatever. But the switching of the gender and utilizing a simple desire to help. I loved that Odin approached it and said, Loki, this is your problem. Fix it. That's it. Fix it. Odin didn't say, I want you to do anything. I want you to do this. I want you to do this. I want you to make sure I have something. Odin walked away with the greatest steed he could have gotten.
That's because, so I'm so glad you jumped right into that, because that's all I've been sitting here is waiting to jump in and be like, with the conversations that we had, the way my mind is now going is pretty much what you've put in. Like, Odin had to have known that all of this was going to happen for him to get that horse, right? Like, at the
Potentially,
end of the
yeah.
day, he could have been like, hey, fix this because I know what I'm going to get. You know, if he was the all.
Well, and thinking about it too, there could have been several options because yes, Odin's the All-Father, and he forefather. That's funny. Yes, but he had all of this, so he may have seen knowledge different than what we think. He may have seen every possibility that could have happened. Hence why the All-Father went to Loki and said, you know what? Fix it.
Yep.
Because he knew Loki would be able to,
Right.
but he was not going to impact which way he did it.
Yeah.
So now no one wants to talk about it. And I don't think it's no one wants to talk about it. I think no one knew what to say. And wouldn't you be a little impressed being Odin? You get to see more about your people. That's the path Loki chose. That's where his mind goes is, what's the biggest problem? The helper. They knew the helper was going to be a big problem. That's why they said no men. And then he brings in this massive beast of a horse.
Right.
And they're like, okay, that was the problem. What do I do? Could they have killed it? Yeah. Would that have caused war? Yeah. He just did something that was natural.
Supernatural sneaky.
Right? So then he became the mayor and he did come back. So it says that he came back months later. So not only did Loki distract for that, then he went and he carried the baby to term. Another choice. The trickster allowed that disruption to come to term and then have its own destiny.
Right.
You look at all of Loki's children. They're all significantly important in Norse mythology. They're all disruptors.
How do the other gods have children that they talk about as openly as Loki's?
So we're going to get to some of those because there are some that I want to be like, yes. And then there are some that I want to be like, but we'll get there. Loki's children just happen to be the most interesting. I think the most interesting, obviously, besides Odin's, you could argue, but Loki is also the trickster who, when you look in the deep, older mythology, the older folklore, a brother to Odin. So, right, our Marvel says he's a son. We know that that wasn't correct, but he was seen as more of a brother to the All-Father. Very interesting, and I'm just going to leave it at that, is the trickster being seen as a brother and being held at that standing to the All-Father. This is your top dog. And everyone gets annoyed with the tricksters. They're the comedians, they're the ones that are constantly causing problems. But they also are the ones that, drop of a hat, they have the solution and they'll figure it out. And they'll get it done. And it may not be clean like you want it done, but you told me to fix it. And I love how no one mentioned anything because it's just that. When we ask people to fix something and they fix it, but we didn't give them directions, we didn't tell them this or that, can we really be upset with the way that they went about things to fix it? And I'm not saying they cross moral bounds by any means. But in this story, he just said, fix it. At the end of the day, the sun, the moon, and Freya cannot leave. All three of those things cannot go.
Yeah, it would be the end of.
So, and then it comes to find out that it was a giant disguised.
Yeah.
So he was taken out, right? There are a lot of other questions with that, though. But I just like that we get to see Loki did his job. He was gone for a while. Came back. Everyone knew exactly what had happened. Right. When you come back with that kind of stuff.
Yeah, you come back with an 8-legged horse.
So we go, no one's saying anything. What do you say?
Yeah.
Thank you. Pretty much. Honestly, as like Freya, thank you. Because had he finished building that wall, a giant, didn't matter, that giant would have walked out with Freya. And because it would have been, I completed my bargain. Now you have to.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it would have been war.
But not even, I don't even think that they had to respect that stuff, right? Like,
Yeah.
they were bound, right?
Yeah, the word, and
Belief.
that's what I'm saying. Otherwise, it causes immense,
Destruction.
war, destruction when you back off from that. But you could argue that, something we see a lot in today's day and age is people have bargains, and the one that is the upper hand does manipulate sometimes to
Mhm.
where it's, oh, it was just a natural event, and I'm sorry about that. So this is something that, it goes back to the
Mhm.
beginning and the necessary aspects of it, but we got to keep in mind that this is a whole lot different than like tricking people out of their homes,
Yeah.
tricking people out of their food, tricking people out of their like custody of their children, and that kind of stuff. This was beyond us, right? Whether we believe in these as gods, deities, if they are just children of the Anunnaki, if they are children of the one true God, angels, whatever it may be, their rules do not apply to us in the same ways. They are meant to have way bigger consequences to show us this is what it could be.
Yeah.
And aren't you happy that you aren't in this position? Be humble in our spot here, but like learn from us. And what I learned from that one, and every time I hear Loki, is that disruption is necessary. Chaos is necessary. And when I'm struggling with stuff and when we're struggling with ideas, one of my first thoughts is to disrupt it. What is it that it needs? And then let's jump right into, and sorry, for those tricksters revealed that certainty is fragile. It can be shifted in ways that are unexpected, in ways that are innocent with our children, ways that are unexpected by crossing bounds to fix a problem that we have created. And so we jump into this story 3, where we get to see the trickster walk back in and explain the lesson that he was teaching. I love this story. We've seen Eshu before as a wanderer, as a traveler, but now we get to see him as someone deliberately standing there teaching that lesson. So we've talked about this, so I'm going to let you go. I'm just going to share. This is the story where one side's seeing the red, one side's seeing the black, and we're walking down. So what did you want to share about this one? 'Cause you were really excited.
Yeah, no, it just like exactly what I said when we were first starting. We always like to believe we're right. And I know I'm victim to this so many times. And then you get smacked in the face with, no, you weren't. Be humble. And every time I get humbled, I say thank you. And I don't apologize for being wrong, but I do promise that I will do what I can to make it better next time. Because man, how silly is that? You were so dead set because you were right, but were you truly right? Life in general, we're all living it, right? And we're all going through this thing and we all feel like we're right in our feelings because it's our feelings. So why don't you feel that way? Well, because it's yours and you're looking at it from over there, you're looking this way, and I'm over here looking this way. And the point in between us, yeah, we can look at that same point, and we're both looking at it, but we're both seeing it from something else. So no matter what in life, we're always going to see something from a different side, different perspective. Whether or not we agree on it, that doesn't matter. But we do agree that we are both seeing something.
Right.
Living something. And if we can just be like, that's cool that that's what you want to believe. Let me believe what I want to believe. Okay. And let's just agree to disagree or just move on. Like, don't let that energy consume you because you have to be right. And that's the point I wanted to get to is don't have to be right. And that's me speaking to myself because there's so many times where I feel like I got to be right, but why? Why do I got to be right? The only person I got to be right to is myself. And I got to know what I believe. But then I also need to not just be so ignorant that I only believe my rightness. Because as soon as I do, I'm the guy looking at the red hat or the black. Because what if somebody was walking down the road too? You had a third person into this walking down and he sees the red and the black and then just sits back and watches. Because how many times has this happened? You could have the person that walks in, sees it, tries to correct it, and then they just tell that guy he's a fool. Or you could have that same person walk and just watch the chaos and be like, I could try to fix it, but this is fun. Sure, we all know those people.
People that allow the two sides to fight so that they can come in at the opportune moment.
Yep.
And I think what you said along those lines of we're all on our side of the fence,
Yeah.
whether there's a physical fence there or not. We're all on our side. It doesn't matter if we're living in the same household with someone. We're all living in our mindset, our thought process of how things are perceived, how they're done. So when we approach it like this one of, yeah, they were both right, but they were both wrong because they didn't understand the cost, right? The cost of being right. Yeah, there are moments when that's as simple as it is, being right or wrong. That's as simple it is. There are other times where, yes, you were right, but the way that you spoke to me as your neighbor, but the way that we allowed each other to throw away friendship because of that one thing where we were both right. But because that makes me think of, like, as stupid as it sounds, politics. Yes, I believe everyone, if you choose a side, whatever it may be, I think there are points on every side.
Yeah, for sure.
100%. Republican, Democrat, right, wrong, whatever it may be. They both have aspects, like he's saying. You're both right and you're both wrong, though, because you've created this separation. You have created two sides. You are both right in exactly what you're saying. And I'm not talking about today's political stuff. I don't think that that's even realistic. I'm talking about Democrat, Republican when they used to be like actual
Back in the day.
two-party systems, right? Not everything's right, not everything's wrong, but they were right in their beliefs on either side. This is how I perceive the world. Why don't you understand it? And it's like, sometimes people can see it, but it's the way that we approach it that they don't want to deal with it. But I think a big problem that I have is sometimes we need to be uncomfortable, because if we avoid it 80 times, 80 people have come in with this, but I don't want to deal with it. It's going to continue. Sometimes we have to deal with that disruption and the fact that, yes, you were right in that, but long-term it's wrong. And so that's an aspect we have to look at too. But this one, how fast things can turn because we see it from different sides. And just like looking at my stuff and how I was kind of sharing a little bit last night, looking at it again today. Wow, that person has no idea what happened at all. Because what they put in there, it makes no sense. Like, it doesn't even follow any of the stuff that's been put in.
Right.
And so it's like, am I a crazy person, or do they really not know what happened in that building?
Right.
And then I'm like, wow, how humbling when I thought that thought outside. And I was like, wow, like that person that I have been blaming may not have even known. Yeah, there were things that he very well did know. But like what happened inside that building, I think that he was kind of left ignorant to it too, and the fact that he wasn't made aware of it.
Right.
Because none of this stuff matches. But that just goes to show that, maybe he was right in some of his stuff of, why are you acting this way?
Yeah.
This is why.
Yeah.
I'm not wrong either. But then again, we're both wrong because we're on completely different wavelengths.
Doesn't it make you giggle? Like, just like these stories, thinking about the real life. Like, I love that you brought that in because, man, holy cow, right? How does that make you feel when you think about it that way? And it's like, man, I'm supposed to be like, we are supposed to be spreading love, light, and helping each other, right? And then we just get so consumed with our feelings and what we feel and what we think is right. What we feel doesn't mean it is right. That's just how you feel in that moment, but it doesn't mean it's for the best. That's just to guide you to the next moment, and only the moment that we're in is the only moment that matters. So when
Right.
you just push all your energy towards other moments, you're taking away from this one.
And thank you so much, because that leads to the last point I wanted to make about Eshu. Recognizing patterns. He recognized the pattern. He recognized where it needed to be disrupted so that this lifelong friendship became a seriously wise lifelong friendship.
Right.
And so someone came in and disrupted that. So when we see patterns, though, this is where we go from difference of opinions, misunderstanding, to, okay, but what about the patterns? Now we need to acknowledge that there were patterns. And anyone that's ever been in social situations ever in your life, think about going to school. There are always patterns. The people that fight to be in the front of the line, people that fight for this group, the people that want this, that, there are patterns. We also, when we have leaders, and they see patterns, I think it is their responsibility to step in and go, you're right, You're right. You're both being ignorant. Get in this office and let's talk about it. I truly believe that would have been huge.
Right.
Sometimes we need leaders who aren't the all-father personality, who aren't the, I have this job to do and I have to be whatever politically correct. I care about you people, so get your asses in here because you're both valuable in your own ways. But this shit's got to stop. Excuse my language, but that sometimes we need to be allowed, and I'm not saying we need to be allowed, sorry. We need to allow our leaders grace as well.
Yeah.
Because if we do, and if we did, there would have been opportunities for them to come in and say, you need my help. And you don't even know you do. These two neighbors didn't know they needed Eshu.
Right.
Eshu, when I see this, and I'm going to cause a problem, acknowledge what just happened, and then leave them with that.
Because if you think about that story, you take away for a second and you look at it, and they were so easily broken when they were friends. Yeah, they believed they were friends, but there had to always been that feeling that there was something off, like between those two.
And I think it was. My opinion's right, and the other person thought their
Like, yeah,
opinion was
there's a
right.
great person over there, but I'm
The way
more
they're
right than
tending
that.
their
Yeah.
fields. I mean, if he did this, it would probably,
And
irrigation.
I'm sure that
forever.
probably came up a time or five, But then afterwards, I loved how it said that they would remember, like, when they got into a disagreement, and they'd be like, you know what? This is nothing. Let's see why. Come over here and look from my perspective. Okay, I see it
Cross
from
the
yours. Now
fence.
come back over here. Because that's what it said, right? At the
Mhm.
end, it's like, then they would go to the other side to look at it. How beautiful is that? That is probably one of the best ways to wrap this up. This story is, instead of you staring there and me staring here, why don't we go sit next to each other and look at it from the same perspective?
Right.
But then switch back, so then we get to see it from that other perspective
And
as
that
well.
doesn't mean we always agree with them. That's
No,
not what
because
this
you can go
story.
over there and use, I see what you're seeing, or I think I do, but I still don't agree with what you're saying.
And we don't need to argue or say that either.
Right.
This
And
is
that's
just
what's,
saying sometimes we need to take a step back.
Mhm.
When someone is so dead set and we think, why don't people have common sense? Like, this is so obvious. They're probably saying the exact same thing about us.
Yeah.
But yet we live in a day and age where it's easier to raise our voices. And man, have I hurt myself by jumping to the defensive.
Yep.
Because how dare you do this to me when they're thinking the same thing? What warranted this, And Eshu is saying, sometimes when you get frustrated and you get to that point, you need to take a step back. All I thought was like putting up the shelves and working in the house. And there's certain things that I'm like, how am I going to do this by myself? Because I'm a psycho and I want to do it by myself. But then I have to take a step back. And I do have to think about, how would Mark do it? How would my dad do it? Those heavier duty shelves. Sometimes we have to take a step back and go, why isn't it working? Me. Why won't this just go into the wall? I have to take a step back, and then I realize, okay, the way I'm doing it is correct. But if I just added this step in, if I would just take a breath and remember what you or my dad had taught me when I've been putting stuff up, what my mom has said, like the blue little screws that you put in to help it, making it level, measuring stuff, like just taking the time to do stuff. That happened because at one point I was a lazy, lazy person, wasn't doing that, and had to have the lesson of someone to come help fix it. I don't need to call my dad and have him come tell me every single time it's the same thing.
Mhm.
That would disappoint him.
Right, because then it's like, what have you learned? And honestly, this is something that bugs me when people choose to do that, and when I have to keep continuing to repeat myself. Are you not listening to me? That is the most disrespectful thing to me personally, is not being heard. Because you're saying you heard me. You're saying you're listening. But why are we having the same conversation over and over and over?
So let's take exactly what you said, and it's not something we've had over and over, but let's take something that we've had. For example, moving the flower, moving the plant out of the room, okay? And I've definitely done this. I don't at all want it to be like attacking you. I've done this many times. It's just a recent one. I moved it out. you intentionally put it in that room, right? That 100% I agreed with that. I got so frustrated when you moved it, or when you said that that's what upset you, that I didn't even explain that I did hear you say that, and that I had these reasons why I was trying to move it here. I didn't even say anything, just walked away. So it was left with me thinking, wow, I never get to try anything new because he won't even listen to me. I didn't give you a chance. And you thinking she's not listening.
Yeah,
I
100%.
literally
That's all
told
I
her.
felt.
I told her that's where I put it. And now she's upset that I'm upset that she didn't listen.
Yeah.
And I'm here thinking, he's upset that I tried something because that plant was dying and I wanted to give it new life. And I was going to explain it was still in the back left of that room, you know, all that stuff. But that was totally dropped on my part because I was expecting a little bit of resistance on that exact thing. And people out there are like, you're upset about where a plant's at in the house. Yes, the feng shui, it's a serious thing.
Yeah.
And the fact they walked in the house and I had put up what? 20-ish shelves. I'd put up 20-ish shelves, painted some stuff, moved stuff around, reorganized. That was the one thing that you noticed right away. People, he acknowledged my hard work 100%. Not what it's
I
about.
did. It was amazing.
You noticed that though.
Yeah.
Because of that exact thing you just said. How awful does it feel that your partner didn't listen to you?
Right. Because it took away, it didn't take away, but it did, because then it had, for me, it went to that part of the conversation where it couldn't just be about, man, you did so much. Because holy cow, people, when I walked into my house, our house, but I was like, holy, it's a whole new place. And it's happened so many times in the last year and a half or whatever that
Well,
I've
'cause it's a
came
long
home.
process.
Yeah, but this place has changed so many times. But I've also said I love when it changes. It feels new. It feels clean. I love rearranging stuff. So the fact that you've changed the house and the setup so many times, it doesn't bother me at all.
Yeah, and just learning new ways and like that. But what that did for me was, wow, I thought I was in the right doing this. You know, changing where it was at. And then I put that shelf back in that room so that the plant could go there. But I never once, until like, you know, ways after, never once thought beforehand, maybe I should mention to Mark what I'm doing first with that plant. And I'm not saying every change in the house, but with something he specifically asked for.
Yeah.
It wasn't the only time I've done that.
Yeah.
And that's why I want to bring it up, because I did it on the wall when you said, I do not want brown paint in my house. And I painted an accent wall brown in the largest room of the house. I remember the feeling of when you came home that day. It wasn't, I'm angry because I don't want brown. It was, I'm angry because you didn't listen. And I still never explained to you that that was the accent wall. And it's not going to look like that long term. That's the backdrop for our shelves, which are brown and black. I immediately just shut down. And that's why, that was a long time ago. And that's why I wanted to immediately bring up the plant, because I missed the opportunity to address it with the paint. And then I did it again.
Yeah.
And it did make me shut
The
down.
universe just gives us the same lessons.
I left the house. I need to go drive and just calm down. Because why aren't you appreciating me? It's because the universe is go, Jane, why aren't you recognizing that he told you 2 specific things? You did all this work, but then you did that in your way. And you never explained why. You never asked. You never did this. No. Do I need to ask permission to change things in my own house? No. When it's something that you specifically mention, no. That might be a conversation.
Right.
And that was 100% on me. And so that's why I love these trickster stories, and I love the Eshu, because here is your lesson. Here it is. Listen.
Listen, Linda.
You're welcome. Mic drop. Gone.
Right.
Okay, so now let's go into our final story. And I did say this. It was specifically to Southwest United States, the coyote.
Yeah.
There's so many coyote legends throughout this entire continent.
With all the animals too, especially this story that we're hearing. It's been told so many different ways from so many different perspectives. And it just adds to the whole stories that I was just saying, especially from the last one where it does tie in, where you're looking at the same story from just different perspectives. And yeah, it was from the Southwest, but because of all these animals, man, this story's been told so many different ways. I love it.
Love how the coyote couldn't do it alone.
Yeah.
Coyote was 100%. Plan would have never happened, would have never been successful. He was the primary person. The coyote stole the sun and released the sun, but it took a community. And it took a community of different individuals. It wasn't all coyotes because that raises suspicion. It wasn't all rabbits. Why do we have only Speed here? There's turtles, there's ravens. The coyote utilized all of the community, everyone that was struggling, anyone that showed up that wanted to help. That's who he went with. It wasn't, oh, well, you're better at this, so we'll take you. He used everyone. And he allowed everyone to be there, and look how it came in handy. The turtle, the slowest one, held it long enough to get it back to the coyote.
Yeah.
You know, and we could say that rabbits are faster, ravens are faster. I mean, coyotes will catch rabbits. The coyote was so necessary, but so was that turtle.
Yeah.
The squirrel, the rabbit, they needed every aspect of help. And I just love that the trickster in this culture is a trickster that sacrificed everything and became the trickster because he realized we cannot keep living like this. We need disruptions. If no one else is going to do it and I recognize it and I don't do it, I'm no different from them. Just right at the end, someone had to do it. Sometimes we get very upset with people who make moves because we get upset that we didn't do it. We get upset that they cross the line, whatever it may be. But then we look back and go, look at all these people who felt the same way, though. Right. That person at least has initiative to do it. I love how at the end of the day, just like siblings, the coyote is going to be a little, pot stir in the future, and he's going to cause some serious problems that we are going to think, how are we going to survive? How we get in those situations of, this is it, it's the end, or they betrayed me and this is it. But they all remember that huge sacrifice that the coyote made. And if he wasn't exactly the person or the animal that did this to me, we wouldn't have light. We know exactly who the coyote is. And he's unpredictable. And thank goodness.
Right.
Because where would we be without him?
Exactly.
And that
everybody has a purpose.
And that means that we have people that we love and adore and that are huge. And, oh, that one person did that one great thing, but then there's all this. They've done way more than that one great thing. They did one big, major, great thing that everyone noticed. There's more to them than that. And we know who those people are when we're championing for them. We know the good and bad. And I love tricksters because good or bad, it's what you get. What you see is what you get.
Right. Well, it's what I love about it. It's that whole yin yang part for me. With tricksters and all of this, it has to be someone's lesson that they needed. So they needed that trickster in their life for whatever lesson that they needed. They're there for a purpose. There is no true evil, I don't believe. But what there is there's things put in place that you need to feel, hear, or see to make you feel a certain way in order to make you react in a certain way to do what it is that you need to do in this life. It's not put there to harm you. It's put there to teach you a lesson. Truly believe every bad thing is not bad. It's just a lesson in order to get you to do something else. The stove's hot. Don't touch it. Ow, that's bad. So I won't touch it no more. When I was a kid, I grabbed a pot of boiling hot soup or something because I couldn't wait to eat because I was impatient little kid. I poured that whole pot of boiling stuff all over my body to where then I had to pay for it in the tub because my mom thought putting kids in tubs was like a miracle cure, I think. Because I got put in the tub so many times. Ant bites, falling in cacti.
All tubs, it'll help you. But it does get your muscles kind of relaxing more for sure. But with this, the trickster, the lesson was that wisdom wears masks. We've all, I think, all humans have been victim to being the one that's not good enough, not wise enough, in the sense of, well, you're too young or you're this or that, so you don't know. And it feels frustrating. But then we've been on that side too, where We felt that. I felt that. And then there are people that, oh, everyone takes their advice, but clearly it's not working. And you get this kind of resentment towards them. But then I've had situations, and I told you this the other day, where I discussed the state versus our district's policy and how in that meeting with state officials there, I told you I was super uncomfortable because I was defending someone I really didn't like. And I said, our district's got it figured out with what our vision is. We care. And it was created by someone, collaborated with a lot of people, but ultimately the main person was someone that I don't have respect for or didn't, and that's kind of what these stories tell us too, is missions are so important. How we help others are so important that we have got to put our personal opinions to the side of, I'm on this side of the fence and this is how I'm seeing it. Okay, cool, great. At least listen to the other side. So now I'm not saying we need to choose one or the other, but how do we help both? How do we help this person over here who thinking this person's seeing all the terrible happen and they're not doing anything? Versus how do we help this person who's just having a really hard time, but is so defensive when you go to help them that you don't want to help them?
Right.
Because ultimately that's what we do when we feel like we're not getting help.
Yeah.
Is that we start getting angry when people approach.
And then, I'll just do it myself.
Yeah.
I'll just do it myself. Well, what is that going to do?
And then people go, well, why do I want to help you? I'm scared to approach you.
Yeah.
I'm worried that you're going to bite. That's speaking about myself. The amount of times that my parents have said, I was worried you were going to bite my head off. The world's just going to keep giving me lessons until I figure that out.
Yeah. Just like you said, you came to the realization today about something. And it's great because give yourself grace. Everybody, give yourself grace. Like, you don't have to be perfect. And then you can slip up and you can make that mistake and you can be like, oh, whoops. Okay. Laugh about it. Truly laugh about it. So long as you didn't truly hurt somebody or make
my feeling
major mistake.
My feeling was, you've been around me. I keep kind of hesitating today because it did shake me.
Yeah.
It was, what? Does he really not know? And then all this time listening to these other people, no, you never told him. So was I really just someone that slipped through the cracks? And this person really is like, what the heck?
Right.
And then when they see this and get the opportunity to, I wonder how that's going to change their perception of me.
Right.
Because, well, this is what we think it is. So their validation matches what they think. My validation matches what I think. But we don't even know what happened in between. And it did shake me. It wasn't a good feeling.
Yeah.
It made me kind of sick. I was out there just kind of like, I don't like that. But it's something changed for sure in me. It was kind of like a breath after a long time of treading water. I told you how I felt like I was drowning for a long time. And then I'm like, have my head above water. And every once in a while, I'm like, whatever. But it feels like I'm finally in the groove and I'm getting the power back in my legs. And I got a breath. And for the first time, it's not always other people pushing us down. It's our own assumptions that we're drowning us. That's the water. And that's where I feel right now is, no, I'm upset about things, but it's not nearly the same. I'm upset, but I'm upset because I was someone that slipped through the cracks. I think that's where it's at now is, wow, all of these people really might have just slipped through. And no one saw it. But me as someone that sees patterns and tracks it all the time, I see it a lot, in other people. But I got to see them every day. These were people that the only times they saw me, it was bad interactions that I had with them. And it was both of us. They had a bad interaction with me. I had a bad one with them. And that's all that we saw of each other at a certain point.
Isn't that crazy? Like, so then that's the only thing they've seen. So if you go to watch a piece of a movie where it's only the trickster being the good guy, say, and I go watch this movie and I'm like, oh man, but that's the only piece I've seen. I don't see where he screws everybody else over, right? So I come back and you've only seen that part, Well, no, this is a great person. No, it's not great. How do we know? How do we truly know unless we watch the whole thing? And we as humans can't watch the whole thing in this position.
We aren't the ones capable of handling it all.
No.
Because even if I say, live with your partner, you know your partner more than anyone else in the world, right?
Mhm.
Spend most time with them. There's still things about them that they may keep to themselves, and that's okay. We all have our own things. That's like saying, okay, I want to learn how to embroider and I'm doing that. So I need you to do it with me. No,
Right.
there are some things that we can do on our own. And that's how we get the tricksters, by allowing ourselves to figure things out on our own, figure out who we are on our own. We can do things like this. We can be the ones that think of the craziest solutions that, gosh, we barely made it out. The coyote barely made it with the sun, to the point where we did all that we could as a community. Now we need to release it to everyone. That's ultimately what he did. We did what we could, and now let it out, because
I
this
just
is
had
it.
the analogy of like everything that's going on, like all these people that come up with these great inventions and then they get snuffed out, because they don't release it because most of them want the money for it.
Mhm.
If they just released it like the coyote did and just said that, we'd be in a totally different spot. But like, that's the thing is like with the new age energy that's supposed to be coming out, sometimes we just need a coyote.
So we did have a coyote. I think that we did, and I think that based on the time frame that he was alive, he got snuffed out before he could share it because he was trying. And I'm 100% referencing Tesla.
I figured
I knew you knew, but for people that are watching, I 100% think that Tesla was a coyote,
yeah,
in the sense that he found stuff. And no, I'm not saying this because I know everything that Tesla did. I
right.
can see the speculation. I can see that quite a bit of his stuff got burned and destroyed. Interesting.
And it's
I
missing.
could see some of the stuff that he was working on. But just day and age, did Tesla reach out? Did he have a rabbit? Did he have the turtle? Did
Right.
he take in this and this and that? Or did he just reach out to the guardians, right? The people in charge. And they're like, absolutely not.
Right.
And that's what's hard too, is when we censor information, let it out and let the people figure it out. Because what if there is a random person? We have a raven, we have a rabbit, we have a squirrel, and then we have a turtle that we would have never figured out could have helped with this stuff, that are coming and going, try this.
Yeah.
Or look at what I accidentally did one time.
Right.
And I agree, though, that if we hold on to it too long for our own greed, Anansi, holding on to wisdom, he couldn't hold it on his own. And then to think you have it all and that you win, and then someone does exactly what you just thought you won. It's like, all right, doesn't matter what I do, I will never have all the knowledge in the world. I'll never be the wisest person. And I don't think that there ever could be an answer to who is the wisest person, except, but when you come down to it, you could be the wisest person in this state,
Yeah.
but the dumbest person if you go over to Europe, like lacking the least amount of wisdom. That's literally how the world works, and I think it's a beautiful thing. What we are going to walk away with today with wisdom wearing masks, the question is, what disrupts my patterns?
Yeah.
So we're going to think today, and I think that we go through the day, and if we feel something, maybe we go write it down, something that disrupts our patterns, our mindset, our flow. What is it?
Yeah.
Don't write why. Don't write why yet. Okay, just what is it? Our activity, though, today is that we are going to laugh intentionally. Okay. So we're going to make this list. So it's a double decker. Instead of just answering the question with why, what's been disrupting me? Okay. I'm going to write it down as we go. Maybe it's a week activity, but then look at that list and just laugh intentionally without defense. Just go, yeah, I remember when that really did irritate me earlier. Forcing yourself to. Yeah, it's going to probably be a fake laugh, but you're going to do it anyways. And then maybe, who knows, the next time that happens, you might unintentionally laugh because, all right, you're trying to get me out of my flow, universe. Stop it.
And I've already had this lesson, so it helps you realize that, so then you don't make those same choices, and not necessarily a mistake, because I don't think it's a mistake. It's just a new lesson that you're learning, and whether you got to keep learning that same lesson, it's not a mistake. It's just you just choosing whatever direction you want. Now you can
But that
choose the easy
means
way.
that means that lesson is not only important that you learn it, but you're going to use it.
Yeah.
And we need you to know it. We need you to not only know it, but to be able to identify it when it's happening. And before you make a choice, be able to think on both sides, not what happened right last time, not how you reacted 18 times ago. Look at this situation.
Yeah.
And I truly believe it's because it will come into effect for something you have no idea how important. And the awesome thing that I think about the Lord, you know, God, in my perspective, I have no idea what my opinion of God is, really. I don't know what he looks like. I don't know what it is. Half of the time, I think it's a Great Spirit. Half the time, I think it's like the Christian Father, right? There's so many things I think it is. But regardless, the love that's up there, we may say it's going to be an important lesson that I'll have to use it for. Yeah. And that could be one person. That's how important we all are to our Creator, is that that lesson may influence millions and it may influence one.
And then, but that one
It
person could
matters.
influence the millions.
It
That's a
matters.
thing. So in turn, you could essentially influence millions, but your millions came through somebody else, you know, and we truly don't know. And that's why it's about helping other people. Quit being selfish, because if everybody's helping everybody, you're going to get help inadvertently, no matter what. So if
That
that's all we're doing is just helping, everybody's going to be like, oh, I'm getting help here. There, let me help you. And then let me help you. And oh, let me give you a hug, because we love each other, and high fives and hugs. And then once in a while, we'll have an argument, and then we'll laugh about it, and we'll be like, oh, okay, cool. Let's restart.
And helping doesn't mean giving. It
No,
doesn't mean
it does
charity.
not.
It also doesn't mean that I break down my personality to fit yours,
Yeah.
or that grouchy old man down the street needs to stop being grouchy. Be your grouchy old man self.
Yep.
I love that. We need every single personality to be who they are.
Yeah.
And a helping hand is very different from one person to the next. That doesn't mean I helped you move a TV, so I'm going to need to pay forward or whatever, vice
Right.
versa.
And sometimes it doesn't go back to the same person. It's
Sometimes
just
it's
somebody
just
new.
acknowledging someone when they talk.
Right.
But with all of those in mind, we are going to leave with this thought. Insight arrives when control loosens. So we've talked this whole time, we haven't talked a whole bunch about control with it. But the whole thing is that chaos tests certainty. Wisdom wears masks. We have no idea what disruption looks like until we are in the midst of it. And that's when we need to understand that this is here telling you, let the reins loosen. I mean, how many times do we get frustrated and I hurt myself because I just am trying to get it done, to where I will literally dislocate my shoulder to get it done, and then I leave it in there until I finish and then fix it. And it's like, we all have our own lessons, you know? My temper has been a tough one my whole life, and it's because it's the control thing. And sometimes I'll sit there and, like I said, I've screamed and yelled at the ground to try to get that anger out. Other times I'm just like, all right, and I'll just lay there, because clearly something needed to be disrupted.
Yeah.
Might have just needed to lay down.
Right.
I might need to push through. There are times when I'm struggling, but the thing really is push through.
Right.
Are you willing to keep going when it's not easy for you?
That's the thing. When is it the time to push through? When is it time to take a break? And we've heard so many stories about that, like especially like with the Buddha, you know, when
Mhm.
we're listening to those stories, and the trickster doing his job. Like, when is the time to be the trickster? And when is the time to like show
Everything in
your lesson is
moderation, except chaos when it comes, disruption, and take it, because like we talked about the other day, we will never know if we can make it as a couple if things are all sunshines and daisies. There will be people that come in as chaos. And that doesn't mean, obviously, the easiest thing to think of is cheating. The temptation of being seduced or just lusting after something, that will always be there.
yeah.
But then you also have the disruptors of creativity,
Yes.
the disruptors of your peace, the disruptors of your way of thinking, the disruptors who, like I told you today and last night, if you would have told me that mother trucker like was going to also disrupt me in the fact of, I felt sympathy right away for him, and was like, because I felt sympathy knowing how rude I can be and how tunnel vision I can be. And this is just what? So that's what it is too, is things are thrown in our path, and wow, I was a disruptor. Maybe I have to reap that. Loki did what he needed to be done, but he still had to carry that burden. Yeah, that child was a burden for months, and then came back and had it. He did what needed to be done. In his mind, that was the solution, and he came back. And I'm not saying children are a burden. I'm saying that the circumstances of that story, it was.
Right.
So with the month of March, that was our March 9th, the Trickster. With the month of March, we have a bunch of Trickster identities coming forward. It is the month of the tested hero. And today was intended to make us step back and think, what if the trickster, the tested hero in their story? And so maybe today we take a step back and think about who are our tricksters that we always think, are kind of side characters or whatever in our life, and taking a step back to think about what they've done too, and what they've done for us, and where they've struggled, and where we should give grace and things like that as
Yeah,
well.
because what if that trickster pushed you into where you're at now, and where you're at now is better than where you were before they did what they did?
That's exactly it. And like we said, I love the trickster because it's our anti-hero, anti-villain. It's our person that we think we know the most about, but they are the person you can define the least, I believe.
Yeah.
And I don't know what it is, but I always think of tricksters with comedians, because a comedian on stage is a very different person than at home.
Yeah,
I'm not saying that comedians on stage are terrible people at home. That's not at all it. Their humor is different.
right.
When you're performing, very different humor at home.
Yeah,
And then it's also like the personality shift. Tricksters and their performance are very different from tricksters when they're struggling, in their chaos. The coyote, you think he wasn't afraid? He absolutely was. You
Oh,
think
yeah.
Loki wasn't terrified of what would happen with Odin if he didn't fix it? Eshu going in and going, this is how fragile certainty is. This is how fragile you humans are. I love it. And I love it so much more with tomorrow being the monster.
Yeah,
Because, the trickster isn't the monster. They aren't. Chaos isn't the monster. You'll see chaos in our book, The Pilgrimage, and the embodiment of chaos in that may feel like a monster, but it only grows because of us,
yeah.
of our perceptions,
We
of our
allow.
doubt. And so we end today, March 9th, with the trickster, and we'll see you guys tomorrow for the monster, and we're just going to keep going. That's all that we have for you today, and we'll get to see you for tomorrow, the
Thanks, guys.
monster.
Love you. Appreciate it. See you tomorrow.